destruction of our cultural cohesion. And that's being done by this massive immigration into the United States and into Europe. And you have to understand what we're referring to. It's mass immigration, typically that being illegal, which is unlawful, and the Bible doesn't support that. And it's people not being forced to assimilate and integrate into society and letting them remain in their ghetto, letting them remain in their enclave, or letting them remain in their zones. And that's becoming very, very unhealthy. And it's causing a cultural collapse in the United States. It's causing a cultural collapse in Europe. Okay, so what's the latest? Here's the latest out of California. The latest is illegal aliens may receive up to 20% of purchase price or a maximum of $150,000 to use as a down payment of closing costs. You understand what it just said? Applicants do not need to make a down payment on the loan or even make payments thereafter. In theory, recipients repay the loan when they sell, refinance, or transfer the home. But since there are no rules forcing homeowners to do this, the loan may never be repaid. Now, when you bought your house, did you get free money? No, thank you very much. So now we have foreign nationals getting up to 20% or $150,000 as a foreign national over American citizens. Okay? That's a problem. And they say, well, Brandon, you're a racist because you're saying it. I'm not a racist. I'm thinking, our own American citizens can't even buy a house, okay? We got the lowest economics going on in California, and these poor people cannot buy, and they're American citizens, and yet you're illegal, and you can get up to a maximum of $150,000. Something's not right, okay? And who's paying for this? We are. Thank you. So here's the brilliant mind of Nancy Pelosi trying to explain this to Bill Maher. And Bill Maher is, he's coming back at her a little bit. He's not as hard as he should, but I don't know. I can't. Look, if you get past the plastic surgery, you can see the demon behind the eyes, okay?
California's always in the lead. Maybe others will follow that lead, but that's up to those states. But we are very blessed here with beautiful diversity.
Do you vote for this law? The California lawmakers just passed a law, it hasn't been signed by Governor Newsom, but giving government assistance to undocumented immigrants to buy houses. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a different place than the Democratic Party used to be on immigration, is it not? I'm not going to say that's what the country's going to do, but that's certainly where California is.
Well, let me just say, immigration had always been a bipartisan issue. I refer you to
But not free houses.
Well, that's not free housing. It's the American dream being available to more people. But understand this about immigration. The best speech on immigration was by President Ronald Reagan. This is the last speech I will make as President of the United States. I want to communicate a message to the country I love. And he talked about the Statue of Liberty and the beacon of hope it is to the world, and what America was preeminent in the world because our door was always open, and we will cease to be preeminent when we shut the door. Now, I don't do justice to the great communicator. Google it. It's a fabulous speech. And George Herbert Walker Bush continued in that respect for the diversity of America and the rest. California's always in the lead. Maybe others will follow that lead, but that's up to those states. But we are very blessed here with beautiful diversity.
Do you'd vote for this law?
Excuse me?
So you'd vote for this law?
Well, I'm not familiar with exactly what it is, but making the American dream of home ownership available to all people is something we have to do for people who are here now.
This is before your residency. This is undocumented. This is for the undocumented.
Well, what I would like to do is move them to documented. Move them to documented. One of the best things that we can do for our economy is to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
So, I mean, the dozen or so lies that came right out of her mouth that couldn't move, it was just stuck there, and they keep coming out because she's had so much done to her face. Here's the thing. When they say we want to have the American dream for all people, okay, we do for American citizens, okay? And we have a diverse population. We want everyone in America that's the citizen to have those opportunities, no doubt about that. But you're talking about foreign nationals. We're talking about people who came here illegally, and we're going to give them free housing. I don't understand, Nancy, how, and she says, well, you vote on it. He goes, I've never seen anything. She's the same one that says, we've got to pass the bill to know what's in it. It's the same mentality, We just got to do that. Wait a second. All doesn't mean for the whole world. You can't do that. You'll destroy your culture. You'll destroy the economy. I mean, look, Newsom, it passed, and all it requires is Newsom's signature, and you're going to go into full effect where illegal, they don't even have to pay it back. They don't have to pay it back. You think the housing market hasn't went high, it will skyrocket when this happens in California, and no one will be able to afford a house except the illegal alien think about this. If your kid, I say kid, like if my kid, and they're adult kids, and they're in their 20s or whatever, and, they get started with life, like these guys right here, they're young men, they're starting out in life, and they want to go buy a house, and they're doing things right, and they're working hard. They're not going to get that kind of loan. They're not going to get that at all. And these are American citizens, and these are kids that, I call them kids because I'm so old, but they're young men, and they're just trying to start out in life. And hey, wait a second, I think we need to give them a chance rather than some foreign national from Saudi Arabia. Well, that's racist, yeah? That's xenophobic, right? Now, here's an interesting thing, and just to do a segue to Nancy Pelosi, I'm going to come back to this, because there's more bills being passed, by the way, right now. Notice the titles of her books and the titles of her documentaries, okay? What's the title? Art of Power. Know your power. Are you seeing a common element here? It's all about power, baby. It's all about power. Right? So what you understand, now here's the thing, this is very Luciferian. And she's one of them, I think, are demon-possessed. There's no doubt about that. I think she's very demon-possessed, along with a lot of others. Okay, so, in studying Satanism and demonology like we did, there's no morality in Satanism, and there's no, right and wrong. It's just about power. You understand? It's a power dynamic. And that actually comes from even, that Luciferian idea comes into Marxism as they see that all conflict is about power dynamics, that all your relationships are about power dynamics. There's no right and wrong. It's just about power. And so when you see the trail of books and all the titles, everything is about her about power. So that's very Luciferian. So it makes sense. So what she's doing is anti-human to do that. It's anti-civilization to do what she's doing. And it's beyond her. It's not just her, right? So here's another thing that's coming down the pipe. AB 2586 requires public universities statewide to hire illegal alien students who don't have federal work permits, even though it's illegal to hire illegal aliens. Okay, it's illegal. That's on the books, and yet they're going to pass a bill that goes against federal law. How does that work? When you have the federal law stating this, and we're going to pass a bill that goes against federal law. Because you can't hire illegal aliens. If you're an employer and you know they're illegal, you can't do that. But we're going to force the universities statewide to hire illegal aliens, so illegal alien students. I mean, again, foreign nationals first, Americans last. According to U.S. Customs and Borders Protection, so this is not made up, it's according to them, Harris has overseen more than 10 million known illegal border crossings while serving under the Biden administration. That's according to the Borders and Customs. You probably already know that. Her platform then promises more migrants, more amnesty, more government, obviously. Massive immigration helps, they say, Wall Street investors by competing against ordinary Americans for jobs, homes, education, hospitals, political focus. The platform will shift vast wealth towards older baby boomers and West Coast investor groups that are bankrolling Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Since at least 2021, those investors have been working with President Joe Biden's pro-migration border chief, Alejandro Mayorkas. So what is the result? Why are investors supporting Kamala for open borders? Because they get cheap labor, and they build and then they can build more federally paid for homes for non-citizens. So it's a whole money-making scheme, and it's not just a political thing for more votes. It's a money-making scheme. So these investors are telling them to do this. Okay, so we have that. Democrats then are now coming out with these terms that you need to be familiar with, that all illegal immigrants or whatever are considered all Americans. We're all Americans. Even foreign nationals are all Americans. So the prisoners released from the Venezuela prison can come here because they're all Americans too, right? And the mentally insane released from the insane asylums and in Costa Rica or wherever they're coming from, or Guatemala, they're all Americans too. So everyone just come because you're all Americans. Okay, that's the driving force. And yet the low information person out there, they buy that. They think that's compassionate. So what do we know? We know, first of all, the increase of illegal immigration increases political votes for political advantage, and they offer financial benefits to this. Okay, so Harvard did the study. 80% of illegal immigrants and migrants that come will typically vote Democratic. That's 80%. That's a Harvard study. The other thing is that you're noticing, it's not just in Europe and it's all of the West. There's not any movement towards integration and assimilation into the culture. Okay, that's not happening. So here's what happened. So what happened is we used to do that, okay? You have to assimilate, you have to learn. Like, I'll give you an example, like Israel. If you're Jewish and you say, I want to go make Aliyah, okay, you can, you're Jewish. They'll let you come back. But here's what they're going to require. You come from America and you want to settle in Israel. Here's what Israel will say. You're going to go through 6 months of learning Hebrew. And if you don't learn Hebrew, you're not going to become a citizen. That's, 6 months. And you go 5 days a week. And you have to learn the language. Okay? So by the end of 6 months, you know Hebrew. And you can speak it and you can interact. Then, at that point, you must get a job. Okay? And you must start working in the economy. If you do not get a job, you're gone. So just simply those two factors in Israel is a huge assimilation issue. You have to be able to speak Hebrew, because that's what they speak in Israel. You have to work. You're not coming here and being on the social welfare. So even Israel has these stipulations if you're going to become a citizen of Israel. Okay, if you don't have assimilation and integration, what do you have? You have tribalism. Okay? And you have people that are coming, bringing their culture here, and they will not come into an American culture. Okay? And that dilutes things. That causes cohesion problems in the culture. Okay. So then what they're doing is they make immigration law benefit the have-nots and the oppressed class. So that what they're doing now is a Marxist tactic. They're borrowing from Marxism and saying, hey, look, what you don't understand is you rich Americans, you're the oppressor, and the illegal aliens are the oppressed. And so they're framing it in a Marxist political tactic, okay? You have to know how they're framing this to understand it. So, you should be ashamed of not wanting illegal aliens. Who are you? You're rich and you're an American, and how dare you even say people can't come to your country? We're not saying people can't come to the country. We're saying you must do it legally. You must go through the hoops and the protocol that everyone else does. But again, it's being framed in a Marxist term. Okay, so then if you move to Europe, and obviously Europe is having Islamic immigration like there's no tomorrow. What they don't tell you is the second generation immigrants are actually the most radical than first generation. That's what's happening. It's happening all around the West. Second generation is the most radical. Okay? Not only in Europe, but here in America and here in the West. And you're like, well, how is second generation getting radicalized when their parents are not radicalized? What's happening? Where are they getting radicalized at? They're getting radicalized at the schools. So that's the stats. First generation immigrants are not radicalized. They're just trying to make it, and that's it. Okay. But what they're finding out, especially in Europe, is the second generation gets radicalized, and they can't control them. And it's the second generation, like you're seeing in this picture. These are second generation Islamics in Europe that are totally radical, off the chart, jihadist type of mentality, right? And that's what we're finding out. Then they gaslight citizens and say that you have no culture and that assimilation is not necessary since there's no culture to assimilate to. They're saying that Europe has no culture, okay? It's saying that America, you have no culture. In fact, your culture is just a bunch of racists. You have no culture. That's what they're telling Americans. That's what they're telling the kids in school. You have no culture because the culture is racist. Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and Washington, they're all racists, and so, you have no culture. Your culture's, you ought to be ashamed of your culture. See, they're doing that intentionally so people don't assimilate. And then they're allowing the criminal element to come in through the border. That's the problem. And look, no one is saying that the 10 million illegal aliens that came in the last 3.5 years under Joe Biden, that there's 10 million, crazies or anything like that. They're all radicals. Well, no one's saying that. What we're saying is, let's just pretend there's 10% that are radical out of 10 million. I think that's enough to say we got a problem. Because if we have just 10% of 10 million, that's a significant number. That's a massive issue. And here's the thing. And I heard Brigitte Gabriel talk about this. And if you guys remember, she used to do ACT. And she still does. But she says, okay, let's just take Islam, for example. And let's take Europe. So not everybody that's Islamic in Europe is some radical. Okay, but let's say 10 to 15% are. Well, that 10 or 15% can overturn the culture just with the 10 and 15%. They don't need the nominal Muslim if they have the radical 10%. And that goes for any issue in Western culture. If just 10% are radicalized and they're Islamic coming through our border, that's plenty. You don't need everybody. And so we're not broad brushing and saying, well, all 10 million are radical. We're not saying that. We're saying there's a certain percentage that are criminal. There's a certain percentage that are bringing in drugs. There's a certain percentage that are Islamic, that are radical Islamic. And that's enough to say, wait a second, we can't let this happen. And then again, they're going to gaslight you to think you're racist and xenophobic. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with culture. Okay, it has to do with culture. And then they'll say diversity is strength. And look, like I've said before, and you have to get this down, diversity around truth is strength. But notice what they leave out. They just say diversity. No. Diversity without truth leads to tribalism, which leads to chaos. Okay? So let me give you an example. Polytheism. When you have polytheistic culture, you will have chaos because everyone's worshiping a different God. There's no unifying factor in the society if everybody's worshiping a different God. And I think everybody in this room would understand that theologically. So monotheism brings everybody together and brings them under one set of rules and one set of values and morals, and that aligns the culture, okay? So the diversity can only work if you're aligned to the monotheistic God. That's the only way the society will work. It will not work if you have multiple gods, whether that's the God of Marxism, the God of Hinduism, or whatever. It doesn't work. And so diversity is only strong if it's surrounding truth, not just in and of itself. So what's happened is, in your public schools, in your universities, they have taught the teachers to teach multiculturalism. And multiculturalism, guys, is not what you think it is. It is not celebrating where people come from. That's not what multiculturalism is. We all celebrate where we come from. That's fine. Whatever. You're Irish, you celebrate that. You're German, you celebrate that. You're Hispanic, you celebrate. That's not what we're talking about. Multiculturalism says this: do not assimilate into American culture. Stay the way you are and don't assimilate. That's what it is. That's been the technique. It's not we celebrate where we come from. It's not that. So anyway, what's happened? The 10% that's come through is causing problems. So 32 armed Venezuelan gang members overtake apartment complex in sanctuary city of Chicago. This is among a black community. And the black community is saying, hey man, are you guys going to stop this Venezuelan gang from happening? And Chicago, what are they doing? They're just letting a gang from Venezuela just take over. And this is if the Democrats in Chicago really cared about the black population, they would do something about this. But they don't. They say they do, but they don't. Previously deported migrant stabbed teen girl at Indiana baseball game. Illegal alien deported 16 times gets 1 year in prison for killing 64-year-old Colorado man. Illegal MS-13 gang member freed into U.S. by Biden-Harris gets 70 years in prison for murdering Kyla Hamilton. Illegal alien charged with murdering Laken Riley wants certain evidence hidden, as if he has any rights as far as an illegal. It's not an American citizen. Alleged child rapist migrant released by Biden-Harris administration, arrested by Texas DPS. He's captured. Okay. Philadelphia police, illegal MS-13 gang member charged with shooting at moving vehicles. Josh Hawley urges court to keep illegal alien locked up after allegedly killing a 12-year-old Travis Wolf. Do you understand where I got these articles? In the last 2 weeks. This is not me saying this is the year. This is the last 2 weeks. Okay? If they're telling you nothing's happening by illegal people coming in here, they're lying to you. The crime rate is skyrocketing. Okay? This is really scary. Illegal aliens caught attempting to board a school bus filled with children in Southern California. Here's the story.
And now to a developing story out of the East County tonight. 2 school bus routes in the Hamul-Dolzura Union School District were interrupted for 2 straight days after several migrants tried to board school buses. Our Sarah Legre has the story tonight.
Well, yeah, there have been 2 migrant encounters in the past 2 days involving school buses and young children here at Hamul-Dolzura USD. Now, no one was injured and all students are safe, but parents are angry.
Your initial shock is you're helpless.
It's practice night for Nicole Cardinale and her son Apollo. Hi. It's the ordinary, but their morning certainly wasn't.
20 illegal migrants tried to get on the bus today at one of our bus stops.
Hours earlier, she got this email letting Nicole know her 8-year-old son was aboard his school bus heading to Hamul Elementary when all of a sudden...
Really confused. He said these adults, they weren't kids. He said, but they had backpacks on, Mom, and they tried to get on our bus. He said, and there was a lot of them.
The district confirmed 20 migrants tried to board the bus Wednesday morning when it stopped to pick up students here along its B route. That's when parents and the driver stepped in, keeping the migrants at bay.
It was definitely really scary.
It also happened Tuesday along Route A, shown here in orange near State Route 94. 3 men walked along the highway trying to stop the bus to, quote, go around their group.
When they see a bus, naturally the impulse might be, this will take me to a much safer area.
Pedro Rios helps lead the humanitarian response at the U.S.-Mexico border. He says while it's unclear why the group tried to board Wednesday, heat and mountain terrain can drive a desperate response.
First and foremost, there has to be an acknowledgement by the Biden administration that asylum is a human right.
Parents like Jeremy Adams now demanding answers from the district and a safety plan to help quell fears.
We don't know who these people are. We don't know if they have any criminal history, what their background is.
Meanwhile, the sheriff's office says it's conducting an investigation and says it takes safety very seriously and are working with the school district in order to keep students and the community safe. As far as Nicole goes, she's stuck with the what ifs.
It's just scary that these kids are put into this situation. If those 20 people would have gotten onto the bus and tried to take over the bus, like these kids and the bus driver could have been in real danger.
The superintendent says she's also been in touch with the CHP along with U.S. Border Patrol. She says in the meantime, she's asking bus drivers to go to the next stop if they do encounter one stop that has migrants nearby, and then asking parents to also meet them at the following stop just to ensure safety for both the community members as well as the students on board. For now, that's the very...
Okay, so there's bus jackings, and no one wants to say what it is. The superintendent writes a letter. Thank you very much. It's called a bus jacking. This is insane, right? Okay, here's another thing. Legislation SB 1174 was passed at the city of Huntington Beach, which remains one of the few areas in Southern California that leans Republican, approved a voter ID requirement, okay? Sadly, for the people of Huntington Beach, this legislation will override their sensible policy. And so California is passing a bill banning voter ID in elections. Okay, banning voter ID. Okay, this, of course, this says this won't affect voting at all, according to these Senator Mark Kelly. That's not a problem. Chip Roy pointed out, who's heading up Save Act, explained that during the appearance at Breitbart News that our own federal government is registering these people automatically through Medicaid, through forced DMV registration under federal law. Virginia, he said, made such an effort in 2023, checking against federal databases. It found that 1,500 non-citizens were registered to vote. In Texas, he continued, also did something similar a few years ago and found 25,000 non-citizens in the system. They are voting. They are voting. Okay, that's what Chip Roy is trying to say. So Nick Nolte, New York gets what it voted for. Migrants account for 75% of midtown arrests. And here's what we're spending per year on illegal aliens. $150.7 billion. I don't know how this is sustainable. Okay? I don't know how this is sustainable. Okay, but what's the point? And we got to go. What's the point? The point is, it's not just simply a political thing. It's voting. That's true. Okay, it's a financial thing. These investors want the cheap labor. Okay, so you have a financial aspect, but then you have a cultural aspect, and this is, I think, the most important thing to understand from this. They are trying to destroy Western society, and this is how you do it. Okay, you bring in people that refuse to assimilate, refuse to integrate, and you coax them in financially to come in, and what ends up happening, you lose your country. You lose America, you lose your culture, it's gone. And all you have to do, guys, is look to Europe and see that the Europeans have lost their culture to Islam. That's who's taken over. So the application is, you have to vote, because you're going to have to outvote illegal aliens voting. I'm just telling you, you're going to have to outvote dead people voting. You're going to have to outvote Dominion. You're going to have to outvote the cheating, because they're going to cheat. And this is one way of doing it, is through illegal aliens. So anyway, we got to do our civic duty, but you need to be aware of this. Let's go, and we'll get running. We went late. Father, thank you, Lord, for what we can learn tonight, not only about the spiritual realm, but even what's going on in our culture. We see all the stuff happening around us, but we know at the end of this, Father, that you have a plan and a purpose, and you will bring justice to the situation. We will one day see your Son rule and reign on the throne in the kingdom, and we know that time is drawing near, and that time to seeing Jesus is coming soon, and we can't wait to see him, can't wait to be with you, but help us to stay faithful in what we need to do here. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, God bless you guys.